What I'd like to do now is create another form, and this is the student and classes form. This form is effectively going to bring students and classes together in what would otherwise be an enrolment. And this form is going to be then showing you how to create dlookup functions. But in case you're struggling to create the form, I'll first of all demonstrate how to create this form. So I'm going to hit the Create tab in the ribbon, and I'm just going to choose Form Design. I want to set the source, the record source for this form, to a particular table which is called Student and Class. So I'm clicked at the intersection of the horizontal and vertical ruler, and on the property sheet I'm going to the record source property and I'm setting it to the table Student and Class. I'd now like to show the form header and footer, so I'm going to right click the details section and turn on the form header and footer, and I'll just maximize my form so I can see more clearly. In the form header, I'd like to add a label, so I'm going to use the label control. And I'll click on the form header and I'll just give it the title Enrollments. I can then format that to look any way I want using the Format tab in the ribbon, so I might go for Arial and bold and black and make it a little bit larger. And that's my enrolments title. I then want to create a combo box that looks at the values in a table, and particularly the student table. So on the Design tab in the ribbon, I'm going to insert a combo box using the Combo Box button. I'll click in the Details section, and I'm going to tell it to get its values from a table, and Next. The particular table, of course, is the table Student, and Next. And the fields that I'm after are Student ID, Student Number, First Name, Last Name, in this order. So I'm going to choose Next, and I'm going to sort it by Student ID. And Next. I'd like to keep the key column hidden, so I'll keep this tick on, and I'll store the value, when I click Next, in the field Student ID. And Next. And then I'll give it the label Choose a Student. And Finish. I can then resize and move and just get it looking right, and I'll format that it's right aligned, and I'll make both of these Arial just because I think it's easier to see, in black, and that'll do just as is. When I finish creating this combo box, I need to click on the Student ID combo box, and using the properties I need to give it the name Student ID. So I might just take a copy of the control source, Control C, and paste it, Control V. So the Student ID is the name of this combo box. I'm now going to create another combo box. So using the Design tab in my ribbon, I'll click the Combo Box button, and I'll click just below Student ID. This particular combo box is to get its information from a table, so Next, and the table is Class, TBL Class, and Next. The fields I'd like to include are Student ID, Class Name, Term, and Year, and Next. I'd then like to sort by class name in ascending order, and Next, and I'll just increase the width of some of these columns to ensure that they can clearly see the information in the combo box. When I choose Next, I'd like to store the value that they choose in the Class ID field, Next, and give it the label Choose a Class. And I'll click on Student ID above and go to Format in the ribbon and use the Format Painter to brush that format or paint that format onto that field. I'll then highlight these two labels, size them using the Arrange tab and the Size and Space button, size them to the widest and align them to the right. I'll just make sure that these two are aligned to the left. I want to click on my Class ID combo box, and using the properties I'll take a copy of Class ID and I'll give it the name Class ID. In the footer I need to add some buttons, so I might just resize this a little, and I'm going to go to Design in my ribbon and use the button, the Command button, and I'll click, and I need a button to add a record. So I'll go to Record Operations, Add Record, Next, accept the text, and Finish. A button to delete a record, so I'll click Button, click in the form footer, Record Operations, Delete Record, Next, choose the text, and Finish. a button to save a record, a button to open the form class, so that's form operations, open form, next. The form I want to open is the class form, next. Show all records, next. And apply the text, open form class, and finish. And finally a button to close the form. I'd like to highlight all these buttons, and I'll align them using the Arrange tab in the ribbon, align them to the top. Also space them equally horizontally, and size them to the widest, which may mean I have to space them again. I'll also format them to Arial, maybe 10, and that'll do. And finally, I need to save this form with a name, so I'll hit the Save button on my Quick Access toolbar, and I'll call it FRM, Student, and Class. Now we're ready for our Dlookup functions. The idea of the Dlookup function is, when I'm viewing this form as a user, so let me just go to the Home tab and choose the Form View. When I see the student here, 55388, I actually don't know who that is. I can hit the drop down and I can see it's Matthew, but I don't want to have to hit the drop down and possibly accidentally change it. I really want it to look up that student ID and show me on the form the matching first name and last name that goes with that ID, so I don't have to check who it is. Also, Great Works, I can see that that's term 1 in the year 2014, but I really need to see that information on the form. So we use dlookups to look up certain values in this form, find them in an associated table, and return associated information. So I'm going to return to the design of my form, and I'm going to use the text box control to create a formula. So I'll click the text box and I'll click out here. I'll give it the label Student First Name, which explains what I'm viewing. And in the unbound section, I'm actually going to enter my formula. So I'll click in here. Now I'm thinking I might stretch it just for your viewing preference. And in here I'm going to type equals, I'll put the caps lock on just so it's easier to see, equals dlookup, open bracket, double quote, square bracket, first name. Look up the first name, comma. Look up the first name in the table, double quote, TBL, student, double quote. Look up the first name in the table student, where, double quote, the student ID in that table is equal to this form's called FRM, student, and class, student ID. Alright, let's just see if we can move this a little bit to clarify that. Alright, so let's have a look at this formula. Starting at the end, the student ID in this form called student and class, where it equals the student ID in the table called student, give me the first name. So give me the first name from the table where the student ID in the table equals the student ID in this form. And that's why you had to name this combo box student ID, because it's going to look for this form and it's going to look for student ID, then it's going to find a matching student ID in this table and give us the first name that goes with it. Now technically the last name is pretty much the same, and I don't believe in doing more work than necessary. So I'm going to click on this formula, Control C, Control V, and paste it. Because then all I have to change is this first name to last name, and this first name to last name. Because based on the student ID in this form, find the student ID in this table and give me the last name as well as the first name. Now let's just check if this is working. Now I can resize this back in a bit, and let's have a look at the form view, and there it is there. And as I move between each record, it gives me the first name and the last name of the student that goes with that student ID in the combo box. Very handy. Now I need another couple of dlookup functions that tell me what the year and the term is that goes with that particular class name. So I'm going back to my form design view, and I'm thinking I might copy and paste as well. Let's just do a wiggle and a jiggle. I'm just going to put this over here because I know that this is not wide enough. In fact, I'll widen. Oh no, I just widen the one. I'll lift these two up and put them closer to the student. And move this down a little bit. Now I'll take a copy of this, Control C, Control V, and move it down a bit. This one I want to call class term. And now I'm going to edit the function. I want it to look up the term, not the last name, so I'll replace last name with term, in the table class, not the table student. So change that to class, where the class ID, not the student ID, where the class ID matches this form called form student and class, and the combo box called class ID. And if I then click that, Control C, Control V, I can call this class year and change this to year. Let's have a look. So I'm going back to my home tab, I'm going back to my form view, and there it is there. This is Great Works Term 1, Year 2014, and as I move between the 20 records in my form, I can immediately see the term and the year and the student name, first and last, that goes with each ID. So dlookups are very, very good. And the last is just making it look tidy, and that's completely up to you. I'm just going to be a little bit fluffy duck and make them look tidy. Put no outline on them, so they look like they're just part of the form. Perfect. And I'll save my form.